Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Danielle Desautelle, and in today's video, I'm going to be answering the question, when do I personally use robotic affirmations and how long until I actually see results in my physical reality? Robotic affirmations is a very popular topic, and I have a couple videos already on robotic affirming, but as I've mentioned in a couple of my videos already, I don't use robotic affirmations for every single manifestation that I go for or actively manifest in my physical reality. And the main reason why I don't is simply because I don't feel like I need to. Now, robotic affirmations is basically saying an affirmation or variations of a single affirmation over and over again, robotically, or in a robotic manner. So for example, if you want to start seeing yourself and experiencing the wealthy version of you, a way that you could start practicing robotic affirmations could be, I'm a wealthy person. Obviously, I'm a wealthy person. I'm an extremely wealthy person. Being wealthy is so easy. And you basically repeat the string of words or variations of a single affirmation over and over again. Now, as I've mentioned on my channel, I actually do believe that the way that you say your robotic affirmations does make an impact on your manifestation process. So as I explained on my channel, the way that I robotically affirm is I affirm to neutrality. And I use robotic affirmations more specifically to not only direct my focus to the end result or having my end result, but also to change my state as well, especially if I'm in an unfavorable state. But the reason why I bring all of this up is because, as I mentioned, I don't use robotic affirmations for every single manifestation that I go for. And the reason why is because I simply don't feel like I need to use robotic affirmations in order to manifest certain things that I want to. Robotic affirmations and affirming constantly and chronically throughout the day is not a bad way of going about or persisting in your manifestation, but sometimes it can be tiring and exhausting. And I have found through my own personal experience that I don't need to actually repeat a string of words over and over in order to manifest what it is that I want. In fact, the way that I go about majority of my manifestations is more of a reality selection process where I start off in my neutral, indifferent God state of being. I pick the reality that I want to experience and I make sure that I am seeing that reality through the lens of possibility rather than impossibility. Like in my imagination, as I'm holding that vision or seeing the end result that I want to experience, I make sure that I'm simultaneously seeing and thinking like, yes, I can have this experience. I can physically experience this in my physical reality. And so that process is a very much kind of like a pick and then move on sort of process. And I found that works really well, especially if I feel more aligned with the realities that I want to experience. Now, with that being said, I do practice robotic affirmations sometimes and in specific circumstances. And for me personally, where I use robotic affirmations the most is actually when it comes to belief change or selecting realities where certain beliefs are true for me. And I want to physically see evidence of that belief in my physical reality. And I more specifically use robotic affirmations when I want to change a belief structure that I'm not fully aligned with for whatever reason. Now, just to preface this, you can use robotic affirmations for whatever manifestation you want to manifest. But the reason why I only really use them when it comes to belief structure changes that I want to be true for me, but I don't really feel aligned with them, is because robotic affirmations are a fantastic tool for not only controlling your focus or where your imagination is, but they're also a fantastic tool to control your state as well, especially if you use robotic affirmations to actually change your state. As easy as it is to say, just kind of put down the old belief and start embodying the new belief, sometimes, especially as we're like simultaneously living in our physical experience, sometimes that's not always the easiest thing to do, especially if we have built up a belief over a period of time and we have a very strong state attached to it, and if we have like physical evidence of that belief in our physical reality. Sometimes having all of that happen to us at once, it's not always the easiest thing to just kind of like let that go and focus on something else, especially when it's like right in your face and you're experiencing it while trying to persist in the new belief or the new thing that you want to be true for you. So what I have found is that robotically affirming my new belief with the intention of not only controlling my focus but also controlling my state has been the very thing that actually has given me alignment and physical results with the new reality that I'm persisting in. So for example, I've used this example actually in another video, but I'm going to use it again in today's video as well. But there was a point in time where when I started my business, I was unaware of all the things that kind of came with running a business. And so what I created in my experience or my physical reality was just a lot of random like surprise bills in the mail, a lot of random things that I didn't really know that I had to pay for, but I had to pay for just because I now owned a business. This was a while back. But my whole point here is I started creating the experience of fearing my mailbox. Like every single time I would go to my mailbox, it was like I always had this surprise bill in the mail. And for the record, I don't really have a problem with paying bills, but I did not like the surprise element that was happening persisting with these bills. Like, I didn't like not knowing or being aware of what I actually had to pay for and when I had to pay it or why I had to pay it. So I basically created this like fear-based response to my mailbox, and it was consistent. It was like every single time I went to the mailbox, I got another surprise bill. I got another surprise bill, and it happened for a while. It wasn't until I actually became aware of the fact that I was creating this reality or this experience that I was like, hold up, we need to we need to create a different experience here. But even though I was aware of the fact that I had created that experience, I actually didn't really feel on board with the new reality that I wanted to experience. Like, even though I knew I could experience so the new reality that I picked for was like, my mailbox is my friend, my mailbox brings me gifts. I didn't actually state this, but these affirmations implied to me that I no longer got like surprise bills in the mail. And even though I knew I could create that reality, like I knew I had the ability to manifest that reality, I didn't really feel on board with it. And I didn't really have a high expectation that it was randomly going to change one day, just because I had experienced that reality, like the old reality, so consistently. And I had kind of like a higher level of insecurity and fear every single time I would go to the mailbox too, even though I tried my best to not have that. And so in this case, what I did was I actually used robotic affirmations to not only control my imagination and pick the new reality that I wanted to experience, but also use them as a way of controlling my state. So every single day when I would walk to the mailbox, I would affirm those affirmations. I would affirm, my mailbox is my friend, my mailbox brings me gifts. And I would repeat these affirmations over and over with just the intention of maintaining a stable state. I wasn't necessarily trying to get rid of the fear or try and make my reality, my current frame of reality, change. I just did it as a way of controlling my imagination and my state. And so what this allowed me to do was actually persist more effectively rather than letting my old reality like cause me to spiral every single time I would go to the mailbox. So for me personally, using robotic affirmations in this way to change a belief structure, and more specifically to select the realities where you're not fully on board with like experiencing them, like you know that you can experience them, you know you can manifest them, but you don't really have a high expectation that it's going to happen. Using robotic affirmations to control your imagination and your state is a fantastic way to actually start persisting in the new reality that you want to experience, especially if you've been having that consistent evidence that it's been showing you that what you're persisting in is not true. But as I mentioned, you can use robotic affirmations for any type of manifestation. I just find it as a very helpful way of going about those situations where you're not fully on board with the new reality that you want to experience yet. Or if you still have remnants of the old state or belief structure still showing up in your system and or your physical reality. Now, the second question that I want to answer in today's video is how long until I see results when I use robotic affirmations? And I actually have tracked this, but something that I want to point out before I answer this question is that I wouldn't recommend looking into your external reality trying to keep score, especially if you're new to manifesting or if you're new to robotic affirmations. The reason why is because your physical reality is a projection of your inner world. You want to find higher levels of security within your inner world because inner creates outer. If you're using your physical reality to create your physical reality or taking physical reality as like evidence for why you can or cannot have your manifestation, you're kind of doing things backwards and you're letting your 3D reality dictate what you can and cannot manifest essentially. But if you get to the point where you're simply just curious, like in how long it takes for you personally to, start to notice the physical results in physical reality rather than just having it in your mental world, then yes, it may be fun to actually start to like notice when you start to see the physical results of what you've been persisting in. I'm a scientist at heart, so I naturally like to track things. And another thing that I want to point out is that this is for me personally. This does not necessarily have to be your truth. It's just something that I've noticed within my own personal pattern of when I manifest things. And obviously you create what you expect, right? So you could make the argument that I expected this, but my whole point here is I'm just sharing with you what I have personally tracked within my own experience of using robotic affirmations. And what I have found, again, for me personally, is that when I persist in a robotic affirmation, in the more effective way, I don't want to say the correct way, but in a more effective way where I'm not only affirming what I want to be true, but I'm also using it to change my state back to that level of neutrality and indifference. I have found that with the manifestations that I'm not that really aligned with, or I have a low expectation that they're going to actually manifest, I have found that it only takes me about a week to actually see physical results, even if I don't really have an expectation that they're going to actually like come to fruition. But just the simple act of persisting in that way usually takes me like exactly a week to physically notice and see the results. that I have been persisting in. And that's just for the manifestations where I have like a lower expectation level for it to actually happen in my physical reality. It's not that I don't think it's possible for me, it's just I don't really have a high level of faith that it's actually going to happen. Now, when I feel more aligned with the belief, or if I resonate more with the belief when I start persisting, it's usually a lot more immediate, like 1 to 2 days, maybe even 3 days, sometimes even on the spot. I've had a couple experiences where almost immediately it's like I've seen reality kind of like shift right before my eyes. But the reason why I bring this up is just to illustrate how quickly things can happen, even if you're not really fully on board with what you're affirming for. Even if you are not that aligned with your reality, if you keep persisting with the intent of getting to a more neutral, stable level of indifference, or a more stable and neutral state of being as you're persisting in your end result, results can still happen pretty quickly. Even if you don't have that high level of expectation, or even this like feeling like it's actually going to happen. But like I said, I would highly recommend using robotic affirmations to not only control your imagination to the end result that you want to experience, but also use them to control your state, or get your state back to a stable state, a stable level of neutrality and indifference. I already have a bunch of videos on robotic affirmations. I'll link them above if you want to watch them. But like I said, robotic affirmations is a fantastic way of learning how to control your imagination and your state, especially if you're coming up against a lot of contrast in your physical reality, or if you still have remnants of your old belief and the state that is reinforcing that old belief in your inner world. So if robotic affirmations resonates with you, definitely try it out and stay consistent with it. Results can happen a lot quicker than you may expect if you keep persisting in this way. But I just wanted to create this video just to answer a couple of the questions that I've gotten on my channel, which is like, when do I actually use robotic affirmations if I don't use them all the time? The answer to that question is when I have a belief structure that I'm not fully aligned with, or I have like a low level of expectation that it's actually going to happen, I use robotic affirmations to not only control my imagination, but also control my state. And for the question of how long it takes for me to actually see results in my physical reality, or see reflection of the new belief in my physical reality, the answer depends on how aligned I feel with the belief in the first place. For those beliefs that I feel more in resonance with or feel more aligned to, the results are usually a lot quicker. Like I said, within 1 to 2 days, sometimes 3 days, and sometimes they're immediate. When it comes to the realities that I'm not really fully on board with, like I know I can manifest them, but I'm not really, my expectation that it's actually going to happen is quite low. Even then, if I keep persisting in the robotic affirmation in an effective way, the results usually come within a week. And that's with a very low expectation or feeling of alignment towards the reality that I am persisting in. So I hope answering these questions gave you a little bit more clarity on robotic affirmations and what personally happens for me when I practice them. And just keep in mind that you can use robotic affirmations for any kind of manifestation. Like I said, the reason why I use them for more belief structure change that I don't really feel fully aligned with when it comes to, persisting in that new reality is because it helps me control not only my imagination, but also my state. And when I can control both of those, that's usually when I see more and faster reflection in my physical reality. But as I mentioned, you can use this with any kind of manifestation. Do what resonates with you. But with all that being said, I'm going to end the video here. Definitely let me know what you think about it in the comments below. As always, I love hearing everyone's different perspectives, but that's all for now. Until next time, keep creating, everyone, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.